we're going to welcome back Josh Bowren, who's our veteran DAFT presenter, and he's been here at MPI since pretty close to its beginning, correct?
Since I was the first post-production instructor for Motion Picture Institute. We had one Avid. It cost $30,000, and we all shared the mouse.
I know anybody's been around long enough. I remember when the Avid came out in '93, and I think Royal Oak got one for the low price of $100,000. And then when I went to West Bloomfield, and we had 4 editing stations, and they were 20 grand each, and I had to like spend half the bond money on these 4 stations, and now last session we were just talking about all these Chromebook free video editing and things like that. So, well, Josh is a real guru of all this, and he also wears many hats. He's not just a pyrotechnician, but he's a Channel 7 editor, and he's a drone pilot, and his class got bumped the other day because he had to go down to the Christmas tree lighting downtown to cover that for Channel 7. So as usual, please make sure your full names are inside here if you're applying for the CT, the sketches credits, the continuing ed credit hours. And feel free to ask questions to Josh. He's used to it. He's used to getting peppered with questions all the time. And I will turn it over to you, Josh.
Well, welcome everyone. And, I talk about when we first started, we had a $30,000 Avid, and our learning objective today is really how do we do Zoom meetings better and do it for free, right? Because we're all budget crunched and, trying to, wiggle through, how can we be most effective and do it for very little cost. So what I've been messing around with is this idea of using OBS, which is a free program that really allows me to make OBS, which is basically a miniature switcher. I can make that my camera that you're seeing right here now. And once we get that kind of built and started, we can have all kinds of camera inputs. We can have links to, live YouTube videos. We can actually have Zoom patch back into the OBS system, and it all streams out to Zoom. So as I start to go through the process of setting it up, you'll kind of see where the benefits are really. And again, I'm really presenting something that costs nothing. It's really kind of just the knowledge to put it together. So I'm going to take over and share my screen. And let's see here. This will be interesting because I don't know that I've ever taught Zoom or how to program Zoom while being on Zoom. So we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, they say it's like trying to lift yourself off the ground.
Yeah. And Kevin, right now, it says select a window or application you want to share. It's not letting me share my whole screen. So let's see why it's not doing that. Central camera. PowerPoint, virtual background. So Kevin, I'm gonna see if you can give permission to share screen on my end as a participant.
I was muted. Allow participants to share screen. How about I make you a co-host instead?
Do that, yeah, because I think that'll let me.
Maybe that'll work. Hang on. All right, try that.
Spotlight view. Advanced, I can share files. All right, so we're just gonna have to get creative here. So I was basically just gonna share my desktop, but Zoom is preventing that from happening. So what I wanted to do is kind of just start to show you what I'm working with here, basically. So I have my computer. Obviously, we're all logged into Zoom. I have my microphone here, which is just your standard USB microphone. And there are some things that you would purchase. So I'm actually working with this device here, which is a just a Blackmagic Ultra Studio recorder. So basically I have an HDMI in, and then I have a Thunderbolt out, and that connects to my my Thunderbolt on my computer. It was about $100. And there's lots of options, right? So you have another one here. I'm gonna have to change the share. This one here will actually go from HDMI in to USB. And you want to watch when you purchase these, because there's a lot of people get tripped up, and there's USB to send HDMI out to, you know, another monitor. So make sure you're purchasing a capture card. And what this is going to really allow us to do is have multiple cameras in the classroom, or multiple cameras in our area, and patch them into this kind of free switcher that we're going to be programming. I have one more example here that I've just recently started using. They're a little cheaper, and this also worked great. This CamLink kind of system here. So again, basically we're HDMI in and then to USB. So that's really the only hardware that I really purchased, is, you know, just a good microphone and some type of device that allows you to convert HDMI to USB. Now, mind you, this OBS program that we're going to be introduced to will actually take anything, whether it's an IP camera or a webcam. I did a thing with University of Michigan where we were able to use these, it's called a loop camera, and it's basically this tiny little microscope that they wear on their glasses. And it zooms in super tight where they're actually doing their surgery from. And that ran on a long USB cable back to the computer. I just plugged it into a USB hub, and it came up as a camera in the switcher. So now we have this program, and I'm going to bring up OBS. I'm going to bring up the website. I can put these in the link, obviously, here in a second. So this is the program that I actually downloaded. Everybody can see this. It's called OBS Studio, which basically stands for Open Broadcast Studio. It's an open source program that is actually created by gurus like myself, or any of you else in the class that just kind of write software. They wrote this program and kind of just put it out to the world for free for anybody to use. And what we've done with it is really used it as a switcher again, so that we can switch from we can roll videos in, we can have multiple cameras going, we can have PowerPoint presentations, we can have slides, and send this to Zoom as if this was our camera. So you don't have to worry about this whole share screen thing. It's basically my camera will be this switcher. So this is free. You can download this. It looks like it's the website is obsproject.com. And I'll put that in I'll put that in the link here when I get a chance. And then there's two other things that I downloaded. One other thing you're going to need for this project is called OBS Virtual Camera. And this again is from some gurus that kind of wrote this plugin. It currently says that this version's currently depreciated, but it does work. So you go up here to the download and you download this virtual camera. And this is really the patch that allows us to take the output of OBS and make it my webcam in the Zoom meeting. So that takes care of the video part of it. The other thing that I had to get was something called virtual cables. And this is actually very cool because internally inside your computer, these cables actually work as kind of patch cords. So what I'm able to do is I'm able to tell OBS whatever the output of my OBS switcher is sound-wise, it becomes the microphone in my Zoom meeting. Now, this is a kind of donate to download. I think I donated like $5 to download this video cable A and B. So you get two cables. And the reason for two cables is you can have cable A send the audio output of OBS switcher to the Zoom microphone. And then virtual cable B can be the speakers of the Zoom meeting back into OBS. So theoretically, you could go to a screenshot of your Zoom meeting and have people talk back to the switcher, basically. We'll probably just use cable A and just go the one way for today, just to keep it simple. But that's it. That's all the ingredients now that we have to put this kind of little project together. So once again, we have the virtual cables that we downloaded, and you just install. And the neat thing is that whatever system you're on, they actually become devices. So, you know, if you have like a USB microphone, your internal laptop speaker, laptop microphone, or you have these cables, you can switch them as devices. And all the programs recognize these cables, which is really cool. Whether you're in OBS,
What happened?
I am going to start up our OBS program. And you'll see it's actually a very simple program. This is it. And just to get this out here, it does have what we call a studio mode. Some people have asked about that. Like they want to have a preview monitor and they can preview the scene and then they transition to it and then it goes out on the air. I've been using it just in this single monitor mode. So when I click on the scene, it just goes on the air. So we'll be working kind of in the single mode monitor for now, but know that there's this cool studio mode if you're more comfortable with that. Real quick tour of the software. Basically, this is the window. Whatever's in this window will actually pop up in my camera in the Zoom meeting. Over here, we have our scenes. And basically, we're going to start building scenes out. And I have a couple of different things connected. I have my internal webcam, of course, which we have access to. I have a Blackmagic box connected to a GoPro. And the GoPro is actually in a very interesting location right now. I'll let that be a surprise when I pull it up. And then we're also going to open up 2 YouTube feeds that are actually live on the air right now. And we'll use those so that we can switch to those as maybe virtual inputs. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our settings real quick. And under our audio, I'm going to come in here and change my desktop audio. So when I apply that, by default, I now always have my microphone in the audio mixer, and I always have my desktop audio here in the mixer. So as I start building scenes out, they're always going to be there. And then we can choose, you know, as we start to add cameras and, you know, windows to see the YouTube videos and stuff, we can dictate if those are muted. So I can come in here and mute those out if I want to for this particular scene or not. So that was just one quick change there. We got a couple more setting changes that we'll do real quick, but that at least gets us started. And I found if you set this up right now, then as we build scenes, I always have access to these 2 very important audio inputs. So the first scene here, let's just keep it simple. I'm going to rename this scene right away. And I'm just going to call this scene internal webcam. And then over here, you have your sources. And the sources,
Josh,
go ahead.
Josh, sorry to interrupt. We are getting some people that are frozen. Are we back to life now, people, or are we gone?
Yeah, he seems like he's good now. But
Okay,
he was frozen a little while ago.
Well, it's funny. I got a message a moment ago that said I've been signed out, and I was still signed in. And anyway, it was a little paranormal activity. Sorry. Okay, I think we're back to the speed here, Josh. Thanks.
How am I doing? Am I doing okay on my end?
Yep.
Okay, good. So, so here we have our sources, and we can do multiple sources. So I can have like the webcam. So let's program that in. So I'm going to add a source, and I'm going to go to a video capture device, and we have the opportunity to name that. And I'm just going to call this my internal camera. And then it's going to bring up a window. What camera do you want to use? And do you guys see this second window that popped up?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So what I have here now is I can choose from anything that's connected to my computer. So if I have a webcam connected, if I have a Blackmagic device, if I have one of those fancy HDMI to USB, it'll come up like as an FHD device. So this particular one here, I want this to be my integrated camera. And I'll say okay to that. And Zoom might be taking over the camera right now, but I'm not worried about that just yet. The next thing I want to do is I'll add another scene, and this will call the GoPro camera. And in this scene, I'm going to add a Blackmagic device. And I have one set up. It's under this Ultra Studio recorder, and it's on an HDMI input. And you guys can see that. You should be able to see my friend Anubis, who is a 2.5-foot ball python. Now, no worries. He's a midnighter like I am. He's nocturnal, so I don't think he's going to come out of his cage right now. He's sleeping, which I should be sleeping. I just got off of work at 10:30. So now this is also a scene that we can use. So let's keep going. I'm going to open up, because I can't share my screen, I don't know that you guys will be able to see this, but on my browser here, I'm just going to go to YouTube real quick, and I'm going to open up kind of a favorite website that I like to go to. I'm kind of a train buff. So they just happen to have these webcams that just run at these railroad crossings live 24 hours a day. So I'm going to add another scene. I'm going to call this virtual webcam, and I'm looking where this one is. This is in La Plata, Missouri. And in here, this source, I'm actually going to do a window capture. And I'm going to choose that web page that I have open, and you guys can now see the web page, right? The Zoom camera.
Yep.
And it sounds like there's a train coming, believe it or not. So we'll say okay to that. And let's just do one more just for the fun of it. So over here on my second monitor, I'm just going to open a new tab. I'm going to go to the same. Well, this is exciting. We got a train coming while we're doing our class here.
You summoned the train mid-presentation.
Got some ballots on that train, Josh?
Ballots coming in.
Yeah, you guys got to hear Josh. Take a second and tell that story.
So while that train's going by, I'm going to add a fourth scene. And I'll turn this down here. Because I just noticed on my fourth scene, I'm going to do another window capture. Now, remember, window captures can be anything you want, right? It could be your PowerPoint presentation. It could be, you know, I don't know. I mean, anything that you can click on in a window, you can have it here. So let your brain kind of go wild with this. So now I have another scene here, and we're going to call this, I'll rename it real quick just to keep ourselves sane. We'll call this virtual webcam. And this one happens to be located in Revelstoke, BC. Now, obviously, they're not formatted, right? So we'll kind of go back here. And you have these handles that you can just resize everything. So we'll just make this nice and pretty and just get kind of fit in the window here. In fact, I'll make it a little bigger.
My favorite is seeing the trolls below. One guy says, this is like watching paint dry. And somebody else says, no one's forcing you to watch this.
And we'll go to the other one. We'll make this one bigger. So I'm just grabbing these little side handles and resizing it. and that'll be ready to go. So now I have the ability to switch between, and I'm actually going to change my internal camera here, see if I can do this. Because I think, because Zoom is using my camera. And I'm going to restart OBS here real quick. And see if that latches back. There we go. So because Zoom was taking over my, and while we're at it, we're going to mute the train sounds. Enough of that. So now I have my virtual camera. I have my GoPro camera. And I have two webcam here that I can switch between. And now we kind of have our, our four scenes. And this is really where I really challenge everybody to, start to let your mind get creative with this, right? So I just remembered I got another scene because Kevin mentioned it. I'm a drone pilot. So let's call this Fall Color Tour video.
We can't see this, Josh.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much for that. So I just added in another scene called Fall Color Tour. And in my sources, I'm going to add a source. And this time it's going to be a media source. And I'm going to call this the drone video. And I browse for that file. And it happens to just be right here on my desktop. And I'll click OK to that. So now I'm really what we call in the industry just hotboxing sources, right? I can hotbox between all these. You notice right now they're all cutting. And that's in the scene transition over here. I actually had programmed in these fancy wipes, and that was going to kind of be my my stretch goal is to show you guys how to do some cool wipes. So I'm actually going to change this back to just a standard fade. Zoom is going to probably tear this dissolves up a little bit, but you guys should see it kind of just nicely dissolving between each source as I go by. Sometimes the dissolves, they kind of chop a little bit because of the bit rate, but we can just set our fancy fade right here. So, this could be, your this could be your main kind of teaching camera. And then I could go to, another camera that maybe had a close-up of something that I was talking about. And then you have these other resources that you could program in, whether it's, again, an IP cam or just a live YouTube video or a PowerPoint presentation. It can be any window that's open on your computer. And right now I've pushed these two YouTube videos over to my second monitor. So you can't see it, but I actually just have I just have the two YouTube web pages just kind of splotched onto my second monitor. But because I've cropped them in nicely into my presentation window here, what the people at home actually see is just a nice video there. So now we can get into combining things together. So I'm going to create another screen or another scene, and I'm going to call this multicam. And on this scene, I'm going to add a bunch of things, right? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, the first thing I want is an image. All right, so I'm going to add an image to this scene. And I have an image ready to go, and it's on my desktop. And it would be where Anubis lives, right, in South Africa. So this will be my kind of background. And again, I have the ability to kind of reframe it and line it up. And now what I want to do is I want to add another scene in this, or another source in this multicam scene. So I'm going to add a plus, and I'm actually going to add another scene. And in this case, you see all the scenes that I've been creating are now available to regurgitate back into this kind of master shot. So I'm going to put my webcam in here, and I can shrink that down and maybe put that in this corner here. And then I'm going to add another source, a scene, and I'll add my tank camera, right? My Anubis live shot, who's still sleeping. Thank gosh, right? For those of you that don't like snakes. And then if I want, I can add another source, and this can be a scene. And it can be my YouTube video that I got going here. We can kind of put that down in this corner. And then just for the fun of it, we'll take the last source that I have, the other webcam. We can just kind of drop it down in this corner. So now I have this cool option of kind of stacking things together. The other thing I can do is go back and start to add text items to these different frames. So I'm back on my internal webcam. I could add another source to the scene, and I'm going to do a text graphic. And I'm going to call this Josh Bowren from 7 Action News. Right, and we know as video creators, when in doubt, Arial Black, right? I'm going to do Arial Black italic. I can just put this down in the corner here. So now you notice as I go in and out of these scenes, when I go to the multicam, it's got my title in the multi-box here. And I continue going on. I could go back to my GoPro camera and add a title here. And this is Live Anubis Home. And I'm just grabbing these little handles and setting it. Of course, you can change colors and, you know, whatever you want to do with that. Font sizes. And now I have this kind of really cool. And again, I'm just kind of clicking on each scene as I want to go to it. This actually has music with it. And something that I want to show you is that there is a problem with this OBS defaulting the sound to monitor off, which is actually kind of strange to me. But because I have a video that actually plays sound, I need to go to this drone video. You see the audio is moving. There's music here. So I need to go into the settings, go to advanced audio properties. And here you see my desktop audio, my drone video, audio, and my microphone. I want to change this so that it's mute, monitor and output. And we also have to change our desktop to monitor and output. And we should hear music now. But again, because we have Zoom going, I think things are getting a little weird. So I got to figure that out. Oh, I know why. Okay. So I'll come back to that. So here I have my music going, and you're only hearing the music through my microphone on that I'm talking to sitting here in front of the computer. So now as I go to my camera, you see I have just my microphone going. If one of you guys were to talk right now, my desktop audio, it would read that and send that back through Zoom. If I go to the GoPro camera, you'll notice the Blackmagic device audio is bouncing. So if Anubis were to talk to you, you would hear that from the GoPro camera right now. My virtual cameras, I have the YouTube windows muted right now. But if I were to unmute those, now you're hearing just wind from the camera. Looks like it snowed there. So I'm just going to mute that window. I can go to the other window and double check that that is muted or not. So we're pretty ready to go here. We have, you know, kind of this really cool kind of switcher built ready to go. Are there any questions before now I try to patch this into Zoom so that Kevin could be, sharing his screen or talking, and as soon as I talk, my camera is now going to be the output of this switcher? I'll give
One
you a second
question
to think
from,
about it.
yeah, one question. Pat Morrow from Gibraltar. Does this take a lot of computer resources? Are you meaning, Pat, does this, you have to have a lot of RAM and things like that?
Yeah, just does it bog down the computer when you start stacking stuff and adding more, layers and, like a editing program would.
That's a great question. First of all, I have to say I do have a very expensive gaming computer. It's a Razer 15. I don't want to tell you how much it costs, but it was $2,500. And I have the happy internet, the happy ending internet here at this house. I have probably a good 100 megabytes on the download and almost 50 megabytes on the upload. My family is very internet heavy. So instead of going to the bar every weekend, we spend our money on internet. So, however, if you look at the bottom of OBS, you can see the processor load right now for everything I'm doing. And we're only using just 2%, 2.1% of our processor. Even getting into this multicam, my processor's only jumped up to 2.3% of processor use. So this program is very efficient. However, of course, with Zoom, this is getting pretty complicated to compress as a file. And just depending on your connection, your end users, this might grain up a little bit. Like I said, on my screen, I'm seeing these real nice, smooth dissolves as I click between each scene. It's nice and smooth.
It's pretty smooth here too.
It's pretty smooth on your guys' end. Cool. Yeah. So the answer to your question, so there, it just jumped up to 7%. So no, I don't think you have to have a super fast computer. I always tell people when they buy computers, you get what you pay for. So if you buy a $200 Chromebook, you're going to get a $200, result. For what we're talking about in class today, I've kind of set the bar between $800 and $1,000. If you walk in any store and say, I got $900, give me a computer. And they're going to show you 4 computers to choose from. You just buy what you want. Buy it because you like you like the screen size, you like the keyboard, you like the amount of ports it has. You like the color of it. Now for me, where, my job, I need to be able to, in fact, just the other day, I rendered a 2-hour movie in 8 minutes.
Wow.
But I paid handsomely to be able to do that. Now, an $800 computer will render a 2-hour movie, no problem, but it's going to take about an hour and a half, maybe an hour, to render that out. So no, this program does not really take up a lot of resources.
One of the things we'd be happy to share too is Josh and Kurt worked really well to prepare some videos, but also spec sheets for computers. So if you do have a student or a parent reaching out to you saying, I'm looking for a real good computer that can run, the end goal was to be able to run DaVinci. And Josh was, but it really, I'm really glad you put all that time ahead of time, because I think it really made it a smooth entry for our students because of that. So if you guys are, Josh, if you're okay, I'll share your text sheet.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
With these guys. I've used OBS. My learning curve is, I actually had a paid gig, but I was determined to just, figure out OBS because it was sitting on my computer for 6 months prior to that. But it's really, once I got it into what scenes mean and sources and all that, it really worked out well, because I actually had to set up at a church and do a single camera, but 4 different microphones up. If any of you have ever shot in a church, it's like an audio nightmare because of the echoes and all that. But I had an audio mixer going into it. But then at the bottom of it, I had graphics saying, and then I had to strike and go up the street to the Marriott and set up for a dinner with a guest speaker with a PowerPoint presentation and all that kind of stuff. And so on the left side where it says scenes, I was able to say church pregame, church service, post-church, Marriott pregame, and you can load all that. And it was so, I was, giggling like an idiot because I was thinking about trying to do this, even just recently in our studio with, any, editing switcher.
It's pretty incredible. And for those of you that are looking for that kind of conventional switcher look, and here we go. So now I can actually preview scenes. And this is nice. I should use this more because I'm actually able to, kind of get things ready and then click transition and it pops out on the program.
Yeah.
And then I can go to my next one and, fix any issues that I have. Oh, we need the graphic over here. And then I can commit to it and put it on the air.
So, especially for those of you guys who have Zoom and you want to have a couple different people come in, you could almost do that newscast side by side kind of thing, couldn't you, Josh? If you had one of the feeds be like a YouTube feed or something like that. I don't know if you'd be able to do that or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I had more cameras because, in fact, we can just create another scene and we'll just call this side by side. My brain is fried because I see a train on one of our videos here. And I also live right down the street from railroad tracks. So there's a train in the background going.
And Mike asked this question, does this only work with Zoom? Is actually no, getting it to work with Zoom was actually the trickiest thing because Josh, you had to set up the virtual cables basically.
Yeah. So in a minute here, I'm gonna quickly do this. We'll do a little side by side.
And Mike, what it does is this is outputs to whatever. And so you can easily send it along where the streaming set up is. You can go to Facebook Live, you can go to YouTube, you can go to, Twitter, all these.
So now I have my, oh, I'm sorry.
And everybody, all the teachers are saying, I'm really glad this is being recorded.
Yeah. And I do, I sadly, I go really fast only because I know I am being recorded.
I was saying, you know, all the years you've taught video here in person at MPI, and you because of COVID, you realized, there's a lot to be said for teaching it online for video, for editing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and one of the things that I've tried to do during this pandemic is really look at, yeah, it's devastating. It's ruined a lot of businesses. We've lost a lot of, friends and family, but, I'm always looking at, what can we walk away with and get a positive moment out of this? This has always been something where I always kind of knew how to do it. I just needed an excuse really just to hit the buttons. So this is really, I try not to say this to everybody, but I say I've been to COVID University, for the last 6 months. Right. I'm doing things with, Zoom and, as part of the kind of caveat before we sign off and ask questions, I'll even show how to patch OBS into Facebook, so we can stream right to Facebook. But here's your side by side, right? So I have a camera here. I have Anubis's tank live on the left, and I have my webcam here live on the right. Here's another neat thing for my switcher people here. I don't know if it'll show up in the screen share, but I'm actually able to bring up a good old fashioned. Do you guys get to see this?
Yep.
Pop-up screen here?
Yes.
These are great, right? This is what you see in a big control room.
Right.
So you can have this ready to go. I can see all of my sources. I can see if I'm previewed on one. It's got
how'd you get to that again? A multi-view?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I did that kind of fast, didn't I? All you're going to do is just go up to the view drop down, and you have this kind of multi-view. You have full screen, which I have a dual monitor system here. I can send it to my second monitor sitting off to my left here and make that just a full screen multi-windowed preview window. Or I can just take my multi-view and make it a floating window. But this is nice because if it's got a red outline, it's on the air. And if it's got a green outline, it's waiting in the preview.
Stephanie just added a couple things. Stephanie's in Romeo, and she said that her gaming students queued her up to this. And I think OBS was actually developed mostly for gamers. Anybody who's ever seen a gamer, they got their little faces in the bottom right corner. But I think between gaming and then COVID, OBS is went into hyperspace. And Stephanie also said you would keep the multi-view on a second screen the whole time, which is really great.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is nice. This is where you really feel like a director now, because you can see the preview before you commit to it and so on.
Cool.
So here we go. We're actually going to try this out and see if I can patch this into my camera on Zoom. So before I do that, the first thing I want to do, because I downloaded that OBS virtual camera, I actually now have the ability to go to my tools dropdown and start that virtual camera. And I'm going to say start that camera. So that camera is just running in the background. It's a device now that Zoom is going to see as an option. I'm also going to go to the settings, and I'm going to use my patch cables for my audio. So under advanced monitoring device, instead of my speakers, which has been allowing me to hear everything right here on my computer, I'm going to change that to patch cable A. So essentially I just now sent all my audio from OBS out patch cable A, and all my picture is going through my OBS virtual camera.
And that patch cable is something you purchase separately, right?
It's a donation. Yeah, I donated like $5 to the designer. I think you can donate $1. It's he does is donate whatever you want, and he lets you download it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to share one other screen here real quick. Because we're in Zoom, I can't really show you how I set it up, but for my audio, I set it up this way. So I took a screenshot. Let me get back to my screen share. So I took a screenshot. So in your little microphone, you're basically going to change your microphone to cable A, which is now anything coming out of the OBS program audio-wise. And I'll get rid of that. And for your picture, you're going to tell Zoom that you no longer have an integrated webcam. You have a, whoop, that's the same screen. You now have a OBS virtual webcam. So I just clicked on the little up arrow for my little video icon, and by default it was just integrated camera, but in a minute I'm gonna change mine to this OBS virtual camera. So here we go. I'm gonna stop all of my screen shares. I'm gonna simplify my life by getting rid of all the extra Zoom windows. I knew this was gonna be a tricky one. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna start my video back up. I'm going to change it to my OBS camera. And we'll get OBS going. And if I start my video, I think I'm on the wrong one here. I want OBS. And yeah, it's showing the logo for it. I don't know why. Right. And then I'm going to take my audio and patch it over to my cable A.
This is my homework. I want to try to do this for next week's student symposium. See if I can do it.
All right, so I'm still working on it here. Okay, so the camera's running. And then now I should be able to go to my video and change it to, there it is. So now you still hear me, right?
Yep.
All right, so now there's my camera and I'm switching my scenes and everything. So now if you're in speaker view, It should take me full frame. It's still got Kevin full frame, I think.
I'll just make you the spotlight for everybody.
There you
Hopefully
go.
that helps.
So now instead of sharing my screen, I'm actually switching in my OBS program here to all my different inputs. I'm also going to try and change my audio now over to the OBS.
Oh, we just lost your audio, Josh. Now we got you.
You should hear me now.
Right.
So it was back to that. I just had to change it to monitor and output. By default, it's monitor off. I don't know why it does that. So here you go. I mean, and this is kind of the end result. So now I have a camera. My webcam is basically this super fancy switcher now that I can go between all these different menus and play sound and go to my multicam view, you know, side by sides, whatever I have set up. The thing that you got to remember, though, is to back in OBS, it's all about that audio mixer. You're going to have to mute things or unmute things as you go from scene to scene. So if I go to this fall color tour, I have to remember to make sure I'm monitoring and outputting the sound from that. Any questions? Any questions so far?
Oh, this is great. The only the one that your drone video is a little choppy. Do you think it's because maybe it's a large file size?
It's probably because of Zoom's probably knocking it down a little bit. And Kevin, you and I have worked with this where, remember, there's this option to optimize full screen video playback.
Yeah.
And that's something that that in this setup you can't do, right? Because really it's just sharing my webcam. So it's probably throttling my webcam coming to you guys. And it just depends on, you know, what your data rate on your system is. The other thing too, yeah, I can probably
It's not bad. It's actually pretty smooth at this point. But all the other video sources are running totally fine.
Yeah, this is a big file, by the way. This was shot 4K 10-bit color. So this is a pretty hefty video. It's playing smooth on my end, of course, but again, you know, we're at the mercy of Zoom now at this point, unfortunately. Anubis is still sleeping, of course.
All right. Well, it's daunting, but at the same time, once you get it set up, it works really well. And I have found that there's, if you're running off a Mac, I don't know if you ran into this at all, but OBS, you got to remember to go and activate your camera inside of your Mac to give it's a privacy issue. And I was working it off the PC and then off the Mac, and I couldn't get my own webcam to show up. And it took me like 2 hours, and I was like, oh, and I finally found the right Google thread that someone said, oh, go to your privacy settings and make OBS able to use your webcam. So this is an ongoing learning curve for all of us, but Mike asked, what drone are you flying?
So I fly a Mavic Pro 2, which has the 1-inch Hasselblad camera on board. For channel 7, I fly a Phantom 4 Pro. And a colleague of mine who I'm a licensed pilot. He just now became a licensed pilot, but I'm actually able to operate his drone. He just bought a Skydio 2 drone. If you looked up drones, the Skydio 2 is not so much a cinematic drone, but a basically wear a little tether on your body and that thing just tracks you like there's no tomorrow. As long as there's no power lines in the area, it will dodge trees, it will dodge fences, it'll dodge buildings. It's got like 10 cameras on it, and it just figures out, you know, where you are and its best path to get to you. And so that's coming in, that's shipping in next week.
Do they make those for golf balls?
I think so. I mean, if
Yeah.
you could get it locked on.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Josh is, many of you remember, he's done many drone workshops as well for our teachers and our students. So Mike got his license in August. Good job.
Outstanding. Yeah. And they're really cracking down. You know, the FAA did a whole 2-year campaign of notifying people of, you know, what drones are and what the rules are. And now they're starting to get to the point where they're like, we told you the rules. And if you're posting, you know, live streams to YouTube and getting monetized video money from YouTube, we're gonna want to have a conversation with you. So the education part of the FAA rollout is over, and now they're starting to approach people. And the fines can get heavy. You know, the fines can get, you know, thousands of dollars.
Well, I think the big takeaway for a lot of folks is, it kind of feeds into our last session before the lunch, was how to make online instruction more engaging. And I think obviously even just, you know, the graphic in the background or whatever. So everybody's, I think, so, you know, the soul sucking experience of Zoom at family reunions and all that, and the overlapping dialogue and people, you know, it's so anything you can do like you've done right now with your screen is really cool. And the fact that this is open source free is really awesome. Are there any other questions from anybody? Feel free to unmute yourself if you like. My running joke from
I got one.
class.
Can you
Yeah,
record
go
right
ahead.
to your hard drive with this pretty easily? Just right to your, yeah. Okay.
That's a great question. In fact, let me see if I can reconfigure here. All right, this is cool. So it's my webcam and it's my shared screen, right?
Yeah.
How cool is that? Yeah, so you have a start record right here. And I click record and it's recording. And you can see it counting down here, the record. It's actually, if I go to my settings, in my output folder here, I can set up what folder I want that to be recorded to. I can tell it what file size, if it's medium bit rate or same as the input. It records MPEG-4. We have hardware encoding here. Because I have the virtual camera running right now, you have to stop the virtual camera in order to change this stuff. And it tells you right here, you know, make sure, well, it doesn't tell you here, but if you try to change it, they'll say, you know, you have a virtual camera running, make sure you stop it, and then you can change these. So yeah, I'm actually recording right now. So great question there. Here's a cool
Adam,
little, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Adam from Dearborn asked, does it give you options like color keying?
That's a great question. I don't think this program does green screen, believe it or not. But what it will do is anytime you have something that's got an alpha channel built into it. So as far as like these transitions, if I come over to my scene transitions, I can actually add what's called a stinger transition, which is really a, and we've seen this before, right? It'll be some kind of animation. So I have an animation that is basically an Apple ProRes file with an alpha channel background. So basically it's a video clip with an alpha channel background. And what this allows me to do is have these kind of cool transitions. And this is something that I just downloaded off of Digital Juice. The problem is the timing is wrong. So I need to move the timing to where the little flash frames are filling the frame completely. And I know from working with this video file, it's at 100 nanoseconds. So now that I've set that up, when I transition between these, I'm using kind of this Apple ProRes with alpha.
Stephanie did say they use it. They do use the color keying at Romeo. It's been 8 months, but if you just type it into YouTube, you should be able to find it pretty quickly.
And it is an OBS?
Yeah.
Outstanding. I thought it did. So here's another example. I'll put it at 100 milliseconds here. And then now when I transition, I get these kind of. So this is one of the oldest video tricks in the world, right? It's basically just a graphic overlay, but I've told it to switch secretly when the graphic is filling the entire frame. And that's where the switch happens.
We were just talking about the video toaster in our first session today. That's what I immediately thought of.
Yep. Yeah, and these are products of Digital Juice. By the way, let's talk about this real quick, because Zoom isn't everything. I'm going to stop my share here real quick, and I'm going to go to my my Facebook page. I'm sure schools have Facebook page, that kind of stuff. So you click on live video. Let me share my screen or share my window. So this is just my personal Facebook, but it works with company pages as well. I'm going to click on live video. And I want to use a stream key, which OBS will recognize and understand. So I'm going to copy my stream key. And they always say, never give away your stream key, right? Because if anybody gets this key, and you're not seeing all of it, there's another 1,800 characters going this way that you can't see. So now I'm going to go back into OBS, go into the settings, go to stream category, and I'm streaming to Facebook Live. And all I have to do is just paste my stream key in there and apply it. And now I'll go back to OBS here real quick. And I click start streaming. It should connect. I should get a green box down here in the corner. It tells me that I'm streaming at about 2.6 megabits per second, 2.7. And now I'll stop this share, go back to my Facebook, and I'll share my Facebook screen. And you see Facebook here, it sees the live switcher. It's ready to go. I can go live. People who know me know that I do this all the time. I just put up these testing videos. And we go live.
And the other cool thing is, I've done this for MPI events, is you can, by default, it'll take you to your own page, but you can also take it to a page you manage. And as long as that page or that group is public, it'll go there. And then you can actually take that same Facebook feed and get this embed code and put it on a website. So people could actually tune in on Facebook Live, but also you could put that right on your district's homepage or whatever, because you can get like a permanent streaming key.
Yep.
And every time you kick on to that permanent streaming key, it'll drop it in to the box on your website or your district's website or your own personal website. All right, we are at the 61-minute mark, but we have, I think everyone needs to empty their brains a little bit. This was amazing, Josh. Thank you. And we're so glad it's recorded. I'll be sending out the links, but I really want to thank you. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to email me. We will continue this conversation, or even if you tune in next week, Josh is going to be doing a color grading and editing session for the students that follows 4 straight sessions right here in the MPI studio.